welcome to my channel. My name's Heather and today's video is going to be all about books once again. This is going to be the wrap up of all the books that I read in 2023. There are a decent amount. I know there are people out there that read like 200 books a year and I aspire to be those people. I do. In 2023, I read 17 books. 9 were physical and 8 were ebooks. I did the math and I read just over 5,300 pages. And my most read genre was contemporary romance. No surprise. I feel like I didn't say that. Did I say that in the beginning? Happy New Year. Welcome to 2023. So that's a little bit of the stats behind what I read in 2023. Now let's get into the books. If you see me looking down at any point, it is because I use my iPad as my reading journal, and I'm gonna be honest, some of these books I don't remember that much about. It's just I have a really bad memory. That is why I have my reading journal. I write down a little bit of a review about each book, the number of pages, some stats about it, make a little vision board for it. I think I mentioned this a while back, but I am planning on doing a whole flip through of my reading journal, especially because the new year is here and I will be starting from and I will be starting over. The first book I read in 2023 was My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Ottessa Moshfegh. This is what it looks like. The cover is what initially drew me into this book. I thought it was so cute, and I don't know. I mean, it's literally just like a woman from an old painting, I guess. But whatever. That's what drew me in. I initially gave it like 3.5 stars, but I would probably lessen that at this point. I feel like that's kind of a high rating for this book if you compare to other people's ratings. I feel like the concept was great. Like, essentially, it's about a woman in her mid-20s who is going through kind of like a mental health crisis. And she has a lot of issues, so she decides she wants to spend a year doing nothing. Isn't that nice? Sounds great. So she finds a psychiatrist, a questionable one at that. The psychiatrist prescribes her just about every antidepressant and medication out there, really, so that she can sleep for this year. And that's pretty much all the synopsis I'll give, because I didn't really find that a lot happened in this book. I felt like it got very slow and repetitive in the middle. The end was like really abrupt. I guess I understand why the author included the ending the way that she did, but like, I don't know. It wasn't what I was expecting. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great. Would I recommend it? Maybe, just so you can see how like strange of a book it is. But other than that, I don't know. I might try to read this author's other books, but I know that they're all kind of in this realm of like, is it good? Is it bad? But again, it's all up to the reader, right? It's like what your interests are. So yeah, the first book I read this past year, 3-ish stars. If you are in the similar book community that I am, where you watch a lot of booktubers, a lot of the book girlies, you probably know that a lot of those book girlies talk about this specific series quite often, and honestly, rightfully so. I say that when I've only read the first book of the series, but I do understand what the hype is about. I'm also quite late to this, but honestly, who cares, right? I am going into this new year not putting so much pressure on myself to read what's hyped up, you know? I just want to read things that I think I'll enjoy reading and get entertainment from, and I'm going off on a tangent, clearly. The book that I read was A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. Sarah J. Maas pretty much has the romantasy world by storm. If you aren't familiar, Sarah J. Maas has, I think there's like 12, maybe like 15 books at this point in her Sarah J. Maas universe. And I am gonna be honest, I don't know if I'll ever get to all of them, but I do want to finish reading ACOTAR. So again, this is A Court of Thorns and Roses. We shorten it by saying ACOTAR. If you've never heard of this, essentially this is a story of a girl named Feyre. She kills a high fae. And if you're not really familiar with fae and this like fantasy world, I don't know that you've come to the right place for me to explain it all, but I will say, essentially he's like a high fae. I don't know. It's like, I'm at a loss for words, I guess. Her punishment after killing this high fae is to live out the rest of her life in this fairy realm, which is where she encounters Tamlin. I don't want to give too much away in case you don't know what this is about, but essentially there's this curse on the fairy lands, and I think it was spreading to the human realm as well. So they're trying to figure out how to stop this curse or revoke this curse, whatever the case is. But no one will tell her how to do that. Either she can die or go back to this realm with Tamlin. And then when she's there, she has to go through a series of trials. I'm not doing it justice explaining what this book is about, honestly. I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was super entertaining. I do understand what the hype is about, and I understand why it has such a strong fan base. The only kind of critique I have for it is that I wish there was a little more spice. Like, there's a lot of like teasing and like tension, because granted these two main characters are enemies, not enemies, but there's some hostility between them, and maybe they are enemies because they're trying to kill her. So I would say that's an enemy. You trying to kill me? I don't think we're friends. As of right now, I gave it 4 stars, which I think is a wonderful rating. I think the rest of the series really has the potential of being like a 5-star series. I don't remember if I talked about this book in another video. Probably not, but I know for sure that I have talked about this series in another video, and that is the Twisted series by Ana Huang. This is the 4th and final book in the Twisted series. I really love this. I gave this 4.5 stars. I really love Ana Huang's writing. I loved the other 3 books in this series, and I just felt like this one, she ended it with a bang. This is the story of Stella and Christian. Stella is a rising influencer on social media, and Christian is the head of a cybersecurity company. He also owns the building that Stella has an apartment in. The story starts off as a fake dating situation. They both need to help their careers. They start helping each other by fake dating. Shortly after they start dating, Christian finds out that Stella actually has a stalker, and he is very protective of her. He is slowly starting to fall for her, and so his mission is to find the stalker. Her mission is to be happy, I guess. I don't know. I don't really know if she has a mission. Essentially, a lot of lies are told in the process. Twisted lies. Definitely a Grumpy Sunshine book, but I will say you really get to see how he develops and his character develops over the course of the book, and I thought that was really fun. I thought the side relationships were great, like Stella's family, and how that storyline progressed, I really like. And of course, seeing the other characters from the other books. Yeah, it didn't give me the 5-star feel, but definitely close. 4.5 stars. We're moving on to March of 2023, which is when I read Catherine Center's The Bodyguard. Ooh, I loved this book. I gave it 4 stars, but it was such a fun read. It's not like the most revolutionary book ever, but it was just so much fun, and I really enjoyed my time. This is a story of Hannah and Jack. One is an executive protection agent, aka a bodyguard, and the other is a famous actor. Who do you think is who? I'll give you a second. Okay, the girl is the bodyguard, And isn't that premise just like so fun? Because why not? She's a bad bitch. Why can't she be the bodyguard? Essentially in this story, Jack is the famous actor, like I mentioned, and his mom is sick. So he has to go back home to take care of her and, you know, spend some time with her. The problem is, because he's a famous actor, he has a stalker and he needs someone to make sure that him and his family are safe. And that is when Hannah Brooks comes in. The only issue, of course there's gotta be an issue, right? The only issue is that Jack's family can't know that Hannah is the bodyguard. So another fake dating trope, we love to see it. It was just super refreshing. I loved the role reversal. I loved the rom-comness of it all. There were, of course, a few parts that were a little bit cheesy, but I ate it up. Like this, it was such a cute book. I highly recommend. One thing to just take note of, there's no spice in this book, which really comes down to personal preference. I didn't think that it like was a negative effect on the book. There's no spice, and that's it. The Bodyguard, 4 stars. Okay, time for a 5-star read. And that is Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. Thinking back on it, is this a 5-star read? I don't know. I really enjoyed it. If it's not 5 stars, it's 4.75, which essentially is 5 stars. This was the first book I read by Lucy Score, I want to say, and it's definitely not going to be the last. This is the first book in the Knock 'Em Out series, so there's 3 books total. I've only read the first one. Are we surprised? No. But I'm getting to the second 2, I promise. I think I'm obsessed with this book is what I wrote in my journal, so maybe it is 5-star worthy. This is a story about Naomi, and Naomi is running away from her wedding day all the way to Knock 'Em Out, which is a little town in Virginia, to help her twin sister Tina. It turns out Tina has gotten herself into some trouble and she needs her twin sister's assistance. Naomi ends up going there to find that Tina has skipped town. She's run away and she's left Naomi a little prize. The prize is Tina's daughter. So now Naomi has a niece to take care of, and her sister also stole her money and her car. So she's pretty much out of resources and she's got a niece to take care of. The book follows Naomi as she tries to figure out her life, and she ends up meeting Knox Morgan. Yeah, now I remember why I really like this book. Knox, loved him. He's the grumpy guy in town. It's essentially their love story. Yeah, it's a story about gaining confidence in yourself and learning to be independent, learning how to consider your own needs over someone else's, and all of those things I just thought really made a fantastic book. I really love nearly every character. Knox was, of course, frustrating at times, being that grumpy guy. Seeing how he developed over the story was really nice. I loved Waylay. Waylay was the niece, and she was just a smart young woman beyond her years. She's a teenager, I believe, or like a preteen. I don't really remember. Oh yeah, preteen. I want to say she was like 12. This book, 572 pages. Did it need to be that long? Probably not. However, I wrote down when I wrote in my little book journal that I loved every minute of it. I did. I also liked how Lucy Score included very diverse characters. The setting was adorable. The library, the cafe, the barbershop, the cottages, everything. She really made you feel like you were there. And that was something that I really thoroughly enjoyed. 5 stars. I really don't know how I came across this, but I will say I enjoyed it. I don't think I knew it was poems before I bought it, even though, what does that say? Poems. I promise I can read. Anyway, the poems were great. Most of them were about women and women's rights. Let's hear it for the women's rights. I ended up learning a lot about Olivia Gatwood, and you can tell that she's very passionate about what she writes. I also learned that she is a spoken word performer. She really writes with such beautiful language, even though it's about a pretty ugly topic. Yeah, it was a quick read. I enjoyed my time reading it. I find it kind of hard to rate poetry just because it's so personal, and I feel like it's not really up to me to rate someone else's personal experience. But if I really had to, I would say this is around like the 4-star range. I mean, I don't know. It was fine. Maybe 3.5. Quick, easy, the end. Oh man. Oh man, oh man, oh man. This next book is one that I don't actually have the physical copy of with me because my sister has it. It's hers. But I read this book over a series of days. I'm obsessed with it. I really am. And that is Untamed by Glennon Doyle. I will put the little picture here. This was like a memoir, mini short stories / poems. It was just a collection of things that Glennon Doyle has experienced. It never felt like I was reading about someone else's life. It felt like I was being given all of these tools and all of these like insightful reminders. I just felt like I was learning more and more as I kept reading. I definitely want to go back and, you know, reread some of the parts of this book because they just made me feel so good. It was so inspirational, it was funny, it was enlightening. She would ask herself questions in these stories, and it made me feel like I wasn't crazy for having similar questions. And that could be over a variety of topics. It's just about educating yourself about things that that you may not have the knowledge about yet, which is okay, but it's the point of going out there and figuring out what it is that you don't know, rather than just kind of sitting back and taking a passive stance. And I really enjoyed that. There were a lot of perspectives that I agreed with, and as well as ways of thinking that I hadn't thought of yet. But overall, definitely a great book. Again, I can't really rate memoirs or like short stories like this, but if I had to, 5 stars all across the board. Highly, highly recommend. All right, moving on. The next book that I read in 2023 was Adelaide by Genevieve Wheeler. Look how cute this cover is. I think it's so pretty, and it's a book of the month book, so we love, you know, reading some of those because I have a lot of them. I'm gonna be honest, I don't remember all that much, but from what I wrote down, it's the story of a girl, Adelaide, who falls in love with a guy named Rory. Not too long after they start dating, Rory, it's hard for me to say that name, Rory's ex-girlfriend, this woman named Natalie, she dies. So naturally he's experiencing a lot of grief, and that kind of affects the way he treats Adelaide. He's pretty much a shitty boyfriend, even though he is grieving. He's just not treating her the right way. I think you can be grieving and still be a good person. And I just felt like he wasn't putting forth any good qualities. Like, I wasn't really a fan. And that affected Adelaide's mental health. I'm always here for mental health representation. I think it's so important that authors include that. I just didn't connect with the characters very much. I wanted her to be happy, but I also didn't really care that much about her. There were definitely parts of the story that I could connect to in the sense of like the setting. Some of it takes place in New York, some of it takes place in London from 2019 until now. It has like a back and forth timeline. I really like the writing style. It was a little bit like Sally Rooney, but a little bit more likable, to be honest. It was easy to read while still being a bit unique. I didn't think the characters were very diverse. There also aren't too many characters, but I don't think it was really mentioned whether they were diverse or not, and I do look for that in a story. I did enjoy the friendship scenes. I thought her experience with her girlfriends and even the guy Gus, I thought that was fun. Not Gus. Where did I get Gus from? His name is Bubs. No idea. This did take me a little bit longer to read. I think it was kind of putting me in a little bit of a slump, so that could have been why my rating wasn't as high. I have a couple friends who, like, shout out to Casey, who love this book, and I'm so happy for them and disappointed that I didn't feel the exact same way. But, you know, it wasn't terrible. It was a good book. I still gave it 4 stars, which is a great rating. But yeah, that was Adelaide. 4 stars. So at this point, we're in June. This is when I started reading the Mindfuck series by S.T. Abbey. Now, I did not review the rest of the books in my book journal until like last week. So my memory, like I mentioned 100 times in this video, is a little foggy on what exactly happened. And what I do remember is that this is a dark romance, a dark like thriller romance, which is the first that I have read by any author. This is the first thriller romance I've ever read, as far as I remember, and I really enjoyed it. So there's 5 books in the series, but you can buy them as a bind up of all 5. So I really wasn't sure whether to include these as 5 books or 1 book. I ended up regarding them as 5, but they're all kind of short, so I don't know, whatever. But you know what? It's my rules. My books, my rules. Anyway, so the series is about Lana and Logan. Something terrible happened when Lana was younger, and that kind of led to her plotting this revenge on the people who wronged her and her family. Essentially, she's a serial killer. Did I mention it was a dark romance? Yeah. But like a good one, right? She has a motive, is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, Logan is the FBI agent and profiler guy. He's working on a few murder cases, including the one that Lana is involved in. Eventually, the two end up meeting, but only Lana knows that he's the one working on her case. So she's being very cautious. Like I mentioned, there are 5 books. Couldn't tell you what happened in each of the books. All I know is that it was a super entertaining story. It really kept me on my toes. Some of it was a bit graphic, so just keep that in mind. Look up the trigger warnings. Again, dark romance. Pay attention to those. I was expecting there to be a little bit more spice, but like I said earlier, to each his own. So yeah, if you enjoy romance and Criminal Minds and that realm of things, the Mindfuck series. So I rated the first 2 books 4 stars, so that's The Risk and Sidetracked. And then I rated Scarlet Angel 4.5 stars, All the Lies 4.5 stars, and Paint It All Red 4.5 stars. I would say it's about a 4.5 star series, because it's not necessarily like my favorite series of all time, but it was definitely a great one. Oh man, I'm nervous to talk about this next one. Now we're hitting about August, when I read Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. Before I mention anything about the book, I love the old covers way more than the new covers. This is the old cover. And I just think it's so pretty. It's soft touch, and new covers can't compare, in my opinion. Anyway, if you are in romance book girly, you've probably heard of this book, but just in case, I want to, share a little bit about what it's about. Essentially, it's about Magnolia and BJ, who are 2 socialites in modern day London. A lot of people compare this book to Gossip Girl, but make it London. I've never seen Gossip Girl, so I don't really know how valid that is, but I believe them. I just couldn't connect to the characters, and I think that's why my rating is not a very high one. It all felt kind of immature to me. I'm sorry. I know so many people, this is like their 5-star top read of the year, and that just wasn't the case for me. So Magnolia and BJ are in a super toxic relationship, and I'm not. So I hate for that to sound like, I don't know, however I think it sounds in my head, but I couldn't connect to them. And I know there's a sense of like entertainment, even though it's a toxic relationship, but I don't know. I didn't like that they are cheating on one another and just messing with each other's heads. I know, like I said, a lot of people find this entertaining, and it was entertaining. I ended up giving it like 3.5 stars, maybe 3 stars now that I'm thinking about how much I'm shitting on it. I didn't really care if they ended up together. Writing style seemed for a little bit of a younger audience. I am considering reading the next books in the series only because, like I said, so many people rave about them, and I would imagine they get a little bit better as time goes on, but who knows. And the aesthetic was great. I love London, but overall, not my favorite of the year, unfortunately. Magnolia Parks, 3-ish stars. Next up, Ninth House, Leigh Bardugo. Love the cover. It's got a little snake on it. So this book started as a buddy read with my sibling, Kayla. And this was a really exciting time because we had never done it before. It was cool because every couple of chapters I would take a few notes in my phone, and then we would share how we were feeling after a couple of chapters. Unfortunately, I believe Kayla did not finish it. She DNF'd it, which is fine. I ended up reading the whole thing, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. It is the story of these societies that are magical in a sense. So I should probably start off by saying this is a gothic fantasy, I would say. So yeah, it's about this secret society at Yale, and I think part of why I connected to this story in particular was because when I was in college, I was part of the School and Circle Honor Society. Shout out to you guys. I don't know if any of those people that I was in society with will watch my videos, but if you are, hello, welcome. That was a fun time. So some of the parts reminded me of my time there. They're pretty different experiences than what were in the book, but it was like if that society would have like magic incorporated, and I thought that was kind of cool. It also had me thinking of like Harry Potter a little bit because they have like a magic library, there are ghosts, cool architecture, and I really liked some of the descriptions that Leigh Bardugo had. For example, she describes the like in between life and death environment. I don't even know how to put it into words, but she did, and she did a great job doing that in my opinion. Oh, I love finding out why the title is the title, and you find that out in the book. Not every book like does that, I feel, but this one did, and that was entertaining. That was fun. Some of it I got very confused by. I know a lot of people love this read. I would recommend it if this sounds appealing to you. I didn't really tell you what the book is about, but you're following this girl. Her name is Alex, and she comes from like a troubled background, and she ends up getting into the school because of her abilities. It's kind of how her journey goes while she's there. There's like a mystery aspect to it, and you're trying to figure that out, and yeah. So I ended up giving this 3.75 stars. I know that's super specific, but yeah, anywhere between like 3.5 to 4 stars, I would say. Ninth House. I'm so excited to talk about these next 2 books and the final 2 books because they are both 5-star reads for me. My top favorite reads of the year, I would say. The first one, Happy Place by Emily Henry. If you watched my videos from last year, Book Lovers was probably my top book of the year. I love Emily Henry's writing. Like, she just knows how to write a good fiction romance novel. Like, her books are so much more than just romance, and I think that's what I love about them. It focuses more on Harriet and Wynne, but it's about them and their group of friends who every year they go to this house in Maine, and they spend a week there in the summer, and it's just like their happy place. Like, the most happiest times of their lives are with these friends that they made in college, and now have grown with over the years. I don't remember if it's the summer or if it's a different time of the year, but either way, they go to Maine. There's kind of a little dilemma in that Harriet and Wynne, who were together for like 6 years, I don't know, they were together for a couple of years, they broke up 6 months ago, and their friends don't know. So it's time to go on this trip to Maine, and well, I don't want to tell you what happens in the book, but they're there and they're forced to fake their relationship around their friends because they don't want to disappoint them. Kind of goes from there. I just love learning about this friend group in such like a fun and relatable way. I felt like Emily Henry did a great job portraying like what happens after you graduate in the sense of like what happens to your friendships. You know, people grow apart, people change their interests, and or maybe they move away. Like, I don't know. I really, really enjoyed this book. I don't know if this one or the next one is my favorite of the year, but it's definitely up there. Also, the cover, how cute. I love it. Setting, romance, everything about this book. Go read it. 5 stars. Did I mention I finished the year off with a bang because Divine Rivals, Rebecca Ross. 5 stars. Oh, that was supposed to be at the end, but it's okay. This is such a beautiful book. Like, if you haven't read this, well, okay, let me explain what it's about so that you know if you should read it, but I personally think everyone should read it. It's a book about Iris and Roman. These two characters start off as workplace rivals. They are both competing for the same journalist position at their newspaper. They supposedly hate each other, but we all know how that goes in like a little romance book. That makes it sound so like typical and like ordinary, whereas this book was anything but that. I really think you should go in blind. I know I said I wanted to explain what it's about. There's a war going on between the gods. It's young adult romance with like a fantasy aspect to it, but the fantasy part where like the magic comes in is that they have both Roman and Iris have these magical typewriters. Iris is writing to her brother who is off at war, and instead of her brother getting the letters, Roman is getting the letters. I don't want to tell you much more that happens after that, but there's stuff happening in the war, and Iris ends up wanting to go to the war front to tell the truth about the war, and it just takes on a whole story from there. It was just written so beautifully. There's so many beautiful quotes. Like, this couple is supposed to be together and you were rooting for them the entire time. It wasn't hard to understand at all. Like, there was a like mythological aspect to it, but it was explained beautifully. It's great. It was great. I know I'm getting a little repetitive, but so good. I don't know if it's because I like just finished this like 2 weeks ago, but I think this one might be the top book of the year. The second one just came out, and I heard that it's not as good as this one, but I am still looking forward to reading it. So maybe in the new year. Okay, yeah, so Divine Rivals, 5 stars. Oh yeah. Oh man, I'm falling. Okay, I've got this. Oh no. Oh no. Oh man, I'm trying not to mess up the books either. Okay. These are most of the 17 books that I read in 2023. Look how beautiful they are. With a few missing, of course. Thank you so much for watching, if you've made it this far. I know that I have been a little MIA on YouTube, but in this new year, I am focusing on creating more and sharing more and reading more, of course. Gotta read to share my thoughts with you. Hope that you have a wonderful new year, and in my next video, I plan to tell you about 24 of the books that I'm going to be reading in 2024. Thank you again so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Like this, tell a friend, whatever it is you do. I appreciate it so much. And with that, I hope you have a wonderful day wherever you are, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!